Welcome to the CEO Pulse podcast. Today we have another great episode here. We're sitting down with Dr. David Brown, and he's actually one of my first mentors here. The guy, besides being huge and like his arms are the size of my head, he's a great person inside and out. So I'm very honored to have you with us today, man. I know that I've learned a lot from you through the years, and I can't wait for the conversation we're about to have, man.
It's going to be great. Dude, you're going to make me blush. What an introduction. Wow. Awesome. Good.
No, so we met a while back, and it was actually through a mastermind that you brought me into. I had my other business at the time, and then we ended up going into this mastermind that lasted for forever. And I mean, some of my biggest learning lessons came from there. And then, I mean, we just became great friends after that. But you've been an entrepreneur for a long time. You were a police officer before then. And tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in your own words. I mean,
background as everybody has is somewhat diverse, right? It always takes turns and pivots, and you never know where it's going to take you in the future. But you end up. So here we are today, right?
Right.
So background between sports. Military, proud of my service I did for this country. Then turned over. Thank you. Then I continued to service, and I went to the police department, right? And I wanted to serve. I did spend a lot of time there, learned some great things, met some great people. Recognize that people are people, right? But how do you lead them? How do you get them to actually do things that they need to do or things that they don't want to do just for the betterment of all? So those are the things I learned, right? Going from there, after the military, decided I made a big placement from locations, environment. During that time, I decided to go back to school, learn a bit more about organization behavior development. Ran a business myself for a while that was very successful, very proud of that as well. And then, over time, just getting an acumen, building it up, learning from people, connecting with great people, mentoring, learning what I like to say, being the good and the brave, making sure I got my knowledge enough so I can help people along the line, but at the same time recognizing I don't know everything, and I need to find good people to help me along the line, and then together we can actually keep moving.
Right.
We can actually move along.
Yeah, it's actually one of the hardest things to accept, that we don't have all the answers, right? As we're coming into something new, sometimes, I mean, creativity kind of takes over at points, and then we like, and I'll speak for myself, but I've been shut off to certain, perspectives at different times, and the reality is that, like, I don't know it all. So staying in that space, and the reason I bring this up is it's because when we first met and I went into that first mastermind group, where it was 8 of us, and then you were leading the group, I learned so much. I thought I had things figured out, and then I go in there and I felt like a 2-year-old kid, and about to go into college or something like that. It was crazy.
It was crazy. What was great about that thing? Like, I was supposed to be their leader, guiding along, facilitating it, but I could tell you what, I actually learned more facilitating a group, supposed to be a leader, from the people in the group.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm still in contact with half the group, and we're still learning stuff together.
Right.
I'm gone out here now on another pivot of my own, and I'm reaching out to the group to mentor me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing what happens, man. It's amazing what happens. The power of the mastermind, right? I mean, Napoleon Hill said it best in his book, but it's so true. I think some of the most pivotal points in my life, in my career as an entrepreneur, have come because of the relationships that I've come across, and the time that I've spent focused and dedicated in actually improving myself as a person and improving my business through mastermind groups. So tell us a little bit about, like, the previous businesses that you've had, and I know, for example, that one of your strengths is leadership, and actually breaking into, for example, especially for like level 1 type companies that are barely getting started. A lot of times, entrepreneurs don't have much notion of the direction they're supposed to take, and I think that, like, that's one of the places where you shine, into bringing light into people that are breaking into a space like that, and also hitting it from the strategic side, which is processes and everything, but also the leadership and personal side.
Right. I look at business and leadership when you come in from a stage one. It's just like actually to being a parent, honestly. Not saying you have kids or anything like that, but if you look at it, when you actually first have a baby, you have to do everything for the baby. You got to feed them, you got to go to them, you got to make sure they're safe, you got to teach them. When they sneeze, you got to make sure they're not sick. You got to wipe their nose. You got to bring them along. And as they get older and they actually start to learn the processes themselves, you just have to make sure they're safe. You have to make sure they're doing the right thing.
Right.
You have to make sure they're going under the process, because at some point you're not going to be there for them anymore. Even as a business owner, you want to make sure that you actually are developing the people so that they're out there acting on their own, and they're actually bringing up people behind them. So we're going to make these people that are going out to this community, they're going out to the world, and with these little people that we brought into this world, we got to make sure that we actually taught them the right things, then give them breathing room to actually learn, make their mistakes, and grow from them. Meanwhile, we have to get up there. What we tend to forget sometimes when we're parents, once our kids become teenagers, our job at that point is mainly just to facilitate. We're just to actually coach them now. Instead, we're sitting there trying to hang on to them, trying to do everything. We just got to make sure they're safe, make sure they're still staying within the principles and the guidance that we gave them. But they have to make the decisions now. Now we got to facilitate them and let them get ready to go into the world on their own and start making it so they work. So they actually start spreading our vision, our legacy. That's what they are. And if we sit there and try and hang on to them, we're not teaching them anything. So the businesses are the same way. So you come in at stage one stage one I'm talking about is James Fisher's 7 Stages of Growth. You come into business and you're sitting there, you're doing everything. You're the salesman, you're the operator, you're the visionary, you're actually licking the stamps, you're cleaning the floor, you're everything, right? You're actually doing the finances, you're just trying to make it work. You're trying to work through the chaos, right? But you got to realize there's this next stage coming. So as long as you're going through this stage, you got to be, at the same time, you got to prep for the next stage. And the next stage is now you actually have employees. Now you have to have the processes in place so they can be successful. And then now you can actually pull it back a little bit, hand off some of the little other things, and let them go run with it. But now you have to have things in place so they can be successful. That's your main job as a leader, is actually make the job or the workplace work so they can actually go out there and be the leader. Everybody thinks, I hear CEO. CEO means to me, chief employee. Right? Inside of a company, we all have one job, and that is actually to service the customer. We all have different points, we all have different perspectives, we all have different purposes, but our whole job is to service the customer and make sure the business is healthy for everybody involved. And that's where the servant leadership comes in.
Yeah. I think it's really hard to keep, or it can be hard to keep your ducks in a row when you're first tapping into something that, it's going to be a challenge either way, right? Because a lot of most people that get bootstrapped into a business, they just don't have that much experience. Some don't even have a support structure that they can go back to. That was my case when I first started. I didn't have a lot of people to lean on. And it's, it can be daunting, and I think like a byproduct of that or a side effect of that can be just getting caught up so much in the taskiness and the doingness of things that you completely forget that you have additional stages coming up, that you have to prep for that next step, for that next hire, for whenever you hit that number. Usually as you grow, your responsibilities grow, your demands grow, your overhead increases, and if you're caught up in that space where you're just doing and don't really put your hand in a frame where you can think at least a couple of months out front, you're going to get blindsided, you're going to get hit. And
you are going to get hit, and that's happened again and again. When I'm out there and I've talked to people consulting from the behavioral side, and I'm actually doing out these assessments for leadership and seeing where they can go. One of the things I see a lot are you get people come out there. There's certain behavioral types that really are great for pushing a company. They're really good on the visionary side. They're really good at making sure things get done. They just run the run. The problem is they actually make a lot of fires. They throw them over the shoulders, and everybody else has to put them out.
Right.
Okay. They need somebody behind them to actually sometimes sit there and slow it down and say, hey, wait a minute. What are we working on? Where are we going to? Before we came in, I was actually, we were just having a discussion to where, working with some great people, they've gotten things great to a certain location, and now they actually hit what I call the flood zone. Okay, in between these stages of growth, there is, you either have a wind tunnel or you have a flood zone. The wind tunnel means this is a blade of activity that's going on, and you got to fight through it. Okay, and you got to move through that so you can get to the next stage. In between that, at the second stage, is a flood zone, which means the water's raising up. You're just trying to keep your head above the water. Well, how do you fix a flood zone? You fix a flood zone, get out of a flood zone, because now you have to realize what got you here isn't going to get you to the next stage. Isn't going to get you to the next thing. So you have to make a change. It could be processes, it could be people. You have to change what you've done now to prep and move forward.
To
and
level up, yeah.
that is hard. That is hard for founders. A lot of times I'm seeing to let go. They have this rubber band effect, I call it. They get to a point, they say they want it, and all of a sudden they're fighting, and then they pull it right back. Meanwhile, they pull everybody else back. They cause all kind of disorganization inside their facilities, inside their industries, inside their organizations, inside their companies, and that's not what they want. But it's unintentional. However, it's based on their behavior. So either they got to release themselves from that position and bring somebody from the outside in to actually make that change, but they have to let go. At some point, they have to let go. Matter of fact, I believe it was J.C. Penney said the biggest thing he did in his company to let J.C. Penney's grow was to let go.
Isn't that interesting? I mean, at first, it's a nightmare for an entrepreneur to think of delegation. Think of, okay, I don't want to, I'm not going to wear this hat. I'm going to let go of this. For the most part, and I know, like, I speak from experience on this, it's really, really hard to kind of let, your baby walk on its own 2 feet, man. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking to a point, and then you start hiring and bringing people in, and then the thing that like used to hover over my head was, okay, cool, how am I going to are they going to take care of the business, one? Most importantly, the clients, the same way that I do. Are they going to provide that same level of service? Are they vested into, the wanting to do this as much as I am? The reality of it, honestly, is that probably nobody's going to be as interested as you are, because you're the owner, you're the founder, to provide the level of service. But that's where the culture comes in. That's where the leadership comes in.
Right. Going back to it, it's your baby, right?
Yeah.
You're going back to the whole beginning thing. It's your baby. And you don't want somebody coming in and watching your baby. You don't want to send your baby to school and watch the principal spank him. You don't want none of that happening.
Yeah.
Right? This is your baby. You're going to raise it the way you want to. Don't you? You're going to protect it. You're going to carry it. You're going to cuddle it. You say you want to let it go. There's times you're like, oh man, this is causing me a headache. I want to do it. But you know what? Let somebody else come in and do something. You're going to grab it again.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what's happening with these founders of some of these organizations. And they're great people. They just need to actually let go, or actually realize they need to actually move to the next stage themselves. And if you're not able to move to the next stage, then that's okay. If you want to hold it back to where you are, you're comfortable, then say so.
Yeah.
But you have to recognize that.
Well, what I've seen too happen is that the founders might be stuck on that primary stage, but the company's not. The company's growing. It starts to thrive. It starts to bring people in and call in talent. Yet that willingness to keep everything in house almost becomes like a chokehold on the company from the founder side.
Right. And that's actually funny, because the result of that is I've been in a couple of companies when I've gone in and I've actually done some assessments on them, and they're like, oh yeah, we're all the way down. They think they're a stage 3 or 4 company. They think they got everything set up. I come in and I do assessment. I do a business management review, a BMR or otherwise, and I look back and say, you know what, you're a startup.
Yeah.
They're like, no, we're not a startup. I say, based on the number of processes you have in place, where you need to go, the way you're acting as a leader, what your modalities you're doing as a leader, and the way your directors or your managers, if you're letting them do anything, the way they're acting, you're a startup. So where you think you are is going to be a havoc. You're going to have hidden factors that are going to come in and keep pulling you back, and they're going to be causing you stress. You haven't named them, you don't have a vocabulary, and that's what you brought me in here for. However, you're a startup until you get past these certain stages and catch up on the things, the 5 main factors that you need to do in each stage to help you get here. They're always going to pull you back. Right? And so
what happens, like, let's say that hypothetically you're having that conversation with somebody, and somebody doesn't want to take that step forward. How do you address it? And I'm at this point, I'm asking as a consultant, right? Like, how do you come in and then do it as a business coach? How would you address something like that with somebody who doesn't want to move forward, or they're having an issue trying to let go?
You know what? One of the things I looked at, Marshall Goldsmith's writing, he actually is very picky with his clients. He actually he set him up. He set him up an assessment to determine if they were going to work well with the system or not, based on behavioral patterns, based on things they told him. I try to do the same thing, right? If you want me to come in and work with you, then you have to be ready, okay? Because if you're not ready, then the change management is not going to be there, and we're all going to be frustrated. You're going to kill my business, my brand name, your business isn't going to get any better, and everybody's going to be frustrated. So we have to work together, and we have to make sure that's happening. So that's the first thing, kind of like marketing, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes your marketing is actually just to move people away that's not going to be your ideal client.
Right.
So you have to identify that. But when they are your ideal client...
That's a very interesting perspective in marketing.
Well, yeah, sometimes, yeah, you want to set your marketing up to get rid of those who are going to say no first.
Right.
You know, the same thing in behavioral patterning. So we'll make this pivot real quick. Same thing in behavior. When we're actually doing assessments to look at somebody's behavior, we know that behavior is observable. It's based on tone, pace, okay, and not words. Words is actually very minimal, but tone, pace, and body language. That's how you can turn quickly if you like somebody. Same thing you do when you go to a restaurant. Within a snap of a second, you determine what you don't want in that menu. Rest of the time, you're trying to decide you already eliminate things. You're trying to decide between things that you might be leaning on the fence or something you know you like. I might want to try something. No, I'm going to go ahead with the good old standard things I already know. You're trying to make that determination. So that's where all of the quagmire comes from your head. You've already eliminated things you don't like. Same thing in business. Same thing in marketing. If you set your marketing out there, you can eliminate just about how you say things. Use words like, it's new in events, or actually say, it's proven. You're already going to eliminate some of the people that don't want to work with you.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
But then you can actually go ahead. Now you can pinpoint. Now you can be more fine-tuned versus shotgunning who you're going after. It's even in wording and marketing, the psychology of it all, right?
Yeah.
So when you're actually dealing with these business owners, when you come in, how do you talk to them? Tell them straight out. You give them the expectation that, here's what you can expect from me. Here's what I'm going to expect from you. And usually I put in there is, because I'm based on integrity, I got to tell you the truth. It's not intended to hurt you. It's not intended to embarrass you. It's intended to make you better. And so it answers your question, what's in it for me? Your WIIFM. I'm giving you that. And the only way I can give that to you is if I'm coming to you straight. So if you get the permission to come to you straight, then you give it to them straight. If you don't get that permission right up front, then don't do it. Just don't lie to them. It's not going to be your client.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sometimes, and it's okay to fire your clients. I mean, it's if a client does not fit your model. Don't just say yes for the sake of saying yes, because at the end of the day, you're still going to have to fulfill that, that requirement or that request. So it's better. I just had this conversation yesterday, I think it was, with my director of operations on one of the companies, and we were talking about that. And he was having an issue with a client that he was trying really hard to come and find a solution for. And what I told him was like, I think he was reaching too far out of his, level of, or not level, but of his essence of expertise, of his genius area, to fulfill this client's need. And it's the obvious thing is that client is not your client. At the end of the day, somebody else is going to be able to service that client better, and you're going to be able to take care of your time and actually be more, profitable with your time or more productive with your time if you don't focus on that client. And I think it can be a really hard thing to do, especially at a level 1 type of company, because you just want to, at that point, we have profits at the top of the priority lists, second by people, and then third systems. But
right.
But it's hard to say no to a couple of dollars. Yet if you say no to those couple of dollars, you're saying yes to a whole a lot of time that you're gonna free up with headaches instead of having headaches in their place and whatnot. So it's really important to come in and realize that that sort of thing when you're building out, I think.
Yeah, it's the same thing, kind of like we're working out. They tell you to drop the ego at the door before you go into a gym, right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing in business. Business isn't about ego. If you're sitting here and this client is not resonating with me, and I'm talking, but I'm like, you know what? Rafael would fit together. He talks at their pace. He uses the language you are. They use his body language is matching theirs. He's a natural. I can see them connecting. I can feel the energy between them is good, between his height. let me introduce you to Rafael. Let it go. The bottom line is, the business health, the client's health, the employee's health.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what you got to do as a leader. Yes, you have to think about it. It's not about me. All right. So that's the other thing. If you become ethnocentric as a leader, you're becoming ethnocentric because you're making sure their people are taken care of, your customers are taken care of, and you will be taken care of as a byproduct.
Right.
If you're looking to take care of yourself, none of you are going to be taken care of. Although you think you are, it's not going to work out that way.
Yeah, you got to be client focused, man. Especially in this day and age. I mean, the old tactics I still got to see a lot of fear tactics, a while back, but they're not as common anymore. People, they're aware now. A lot of the customers out there, for whatever it is that you're selling, I mean, whether it be a restaurant, it be a recipe, it be a training course, it be coaching, it be whatever, people catch on a lot quicker. I think the audience out there, the customer base out there, it's a lot more educated than they were even 10 years ago. So people,
or at least they think they are.
Yeah, well, yeah. But what I'm trying to get to is that you have to be client and customer focused. Yeah.
Well,
otherwise it doesn't work.
That's an interesting point too. So when we talk about client focus, so one of the things I ask companies, either when I'm interviewing them or interviewing for them, I usually ask them what's their culture. That is the hardest question.
Oh man.
For an employee,
what?
For an executive team to answer. Yeah. What is their culture? And they don't realize culture only comes down to actually minimum areas. Everybody tries to go all over the place and try to paint all these things, but culture typically comes down to, are you employee focused? Are you customer focused? Are you profit focused? Which one?
Yeah.
You can sit there and try to pull it all you want to. You can make it and say you're employee focused, but that's because you're trying to make your employees happy, because they're going to make their customer facing, they're going to make the customer happy. And in turn, then the profit comes up. If you make yourself customer happy, then you're going to actually sit there and try to make sure the customer's satisfaction scores are higher, but then you got to make sure you have the employees and make sure that their customers are satisfied. And in turn, your profits carry up. If you're going to say you want to be profit happy, it doesn't matter. If you do a balanced scorecard, then you actually have to have your systems, your people engaged and all that. It doesn't matter. Just be honest with yourself. Which one's your focus?
Right. Yeah, and whatever you pick, that's the beauty of having a culture actually in the first place, right? But let me ask you this. So that brings me up to this question. So I'm thinking, as we transition into stages during the business, we start at level 1 where you have a certain amount of employees, and then you have certain priorities, and then you move on to a level 2 company, which is it's a little bit more evolved. You have more systems in place, and then you start focusing more on the people, and then we start progressing through the different levels, right? How does culture change from one to the next?
Culture changes with the leadership's vision. If you bring in different leadership, the culture changes, but the culture doesn't necessarily have to change. Okay, it doesn't have to change. So going back a little bit, so we're talking about going from stage 1 to 2 to 3 or 4 to 5. There's 7 stages that James Fisher identified, and we'll just go with that one for this podcast. It's actually based on people, and the reason why it's based on people, because people are where the complexity is. If you sit there with yourself, you're not going to have a culture issue. You're not going to have a lot of problems besides the processes come out, but it's going to be based on you.
Right.
As you bring more people in, then you're going to bring in the different aspects that each individual person will bring with them. Therefore, that's why it's important for you to have the processes in place to help manage the people, right? You manage processes, you lead people, right? So, because if somebody does something wrong, should you look at the employee first, or should you look at the process first? We tell you to look at the process first, but most employees and leaders will look at the people first. They blame the people. Why?
Point fingers. It's easier to get rid of that blame.
It's easier to get rid of the blame instead of realizing, because if it's the process, then who's in charge of the process?
Right.
I am.
Yeah.
Do I want to be wrong? Hell no. Right?
Yeah.
So it's easy to actually go ahead and look at Johnny over there or Susie over there. It's their fault. Let's get rid of them. But guess what? More likely, the issue's going to come up again with somebody else because we didn't have the correct process.
Right.
And it's okay to be wrong, but you want to fix it.
Yeah, it's interesting how culture can really just dial into something as simple as picking. Okay, what are we basing our actions on? I have, for example, I have a couple of certain, guiding beacons or pointers, right, that I have in my businesses. And whenever I take an action, even if it's a dispute or something like that I'm fighting with, with whoever or a customer or whatever, or we're creating a new process or a new product, I come and I look at it, and it's got to be pointing to those things that I have written out for each one of the companies in the wall. Like if it's pointing towards one of those things, it means that we're still in the essence of the company. And I like to embrace that as the culture, because like all the employees know those. Like they know that that's what we abide for, that's what we stick out for in the marketplace. And so all the actions have to be geared to that. I think when you can simplify it and you dial it in, I mean, it really gets rid of a lot of the confusion that can be in a company as far as, okay, how do we, under what ethical or moral standards do we operate under, what makes our decisions happen, who do we go to? At the end of the day, you have a couple of things that, that point out the essence of the company. And if you simplify those, I think that it's easy to to have your employees and the team, the bloodline of the company follow those standards as well. So
yeah, the simplification of things is actually the hardest.
Yeah.
I'm completely guilty of this, to where I'm constantly having to tell or people are having to tell me, dumb it down, Doc. I'm like, what do you mean? But I spend more time walking through figuring out how to simplify something, making it down into 1 to 5 steps, making it as few steps as possible. Let's get rid of the riffraff. Let's get rid of the extra. Let's make it lean, right? So everybody can understand it and move from there. That is the hardest thing for it. I mean, I've seen, you go into these entrepreneurs in stage 1 a lot of times. They think they're organized, and a lot of times what they're coming up with, they just have a lot of things coming out there. Put it here, put it here, put it here. And then somebody else comes in and start asking, they get frustrated. How can you not catch up on this? Why aren't you back up to speed where I'm at?
Right.
Well, where's the process? You said you gave this, but you have it here, you have a little bit there, you have a little bit there. That doesn't work for somebody else coming in. That worked for you.
Yeah.
It's in your head. You have something going on, but is that the process on how you want to actually deliver your product? Quick, fast, efficiently, safely,
right.
and actually with the lowest cost.
Yeah, no, totally agree. We have this philosophy at CO Pulse, which is less business, more profits. Less meaning lean, effective, strategic, and simple.
Yeah.
And I think those four pillars, to call them something, they really embrace the most important things that a company should keep in mind whenever they're developing anything, whenever they're developing a hiring program, whenever it's a new process, when it's something that they want to add on to the company. I mean, is it lean? Is it effective? Is it strategic? And is it simple? I mean, if everything that comes, at least at this point in time, anything that comes at me right now, I try to shape it and dial it in and tweak it and do whatever I need to do with it under that thought process. And I mean, it works well. Less business, more profits, and I mean, it's also less headaches, man.
So let me ask you this question: what is the simplest way to actually make that happen that you hardly see most business leaders do? It's one word.
One word. I don't know how to put it into one word.
It's no.
No.
Say no.
Oh, say no. I thought you meant like knowing.
No. Say no.
Yeah.
No. Business leaders that get up there to visionaries, what makes them great at what they do, they see opportunity in everything.
Yeah.
So they're always creating, they're always bringing stuff in. And
Guilty.
that's good.
Guilty.
Right? You got to learn to sit back and look at, okay, since you talked about your strategy, is this going to actually fit into our strategy? Is this going to fit in to actually help us get this, move this rock right now?
Yeah.
If it's not, and you're just going to cause more distraction, you have to say no. Now, let's be careful. One thing I learned about saying no to people individually, that's a skill in of itself.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to. It's got to
Right?
be the idea, not the person bringing it to
Right?
the table.
Because you got to think about, you're talking about organization behavior. You're talking about when people hear no too much, it's usually only about 3 times, they almost quit asking.
Yeah.
It sends them back to their childhood to when they said no, so they just stop.
Yeah.
That's why you'll sit in meetings and you're the only one talking. There's no ideas flowing. They're sitting there. So you have to play. I learned this, and actually one of our groups, the speaker came in and was talking about when they're doing improv stuff, they work off yes and.
Oh, yeah.
Yes and. That has worked something miraculous because you say yes and, that means you say yes, and then and you give another aspect to it, and then by the time you get around to an answer that's going, everybody feels good because you avoided the no with the people, but you still said no in itself.
Yeah, it's funny you bring that up. I actually just wrapped up reading a book called Stealing the Show, and it's about public speaking, but it actually goes into detail on the improv aspect of things, and not just in public speaking and acting and that industry. I mean, I think it applies very well to business. So you have something come in, and then sometimes it may be like a half-cooked idea. So instead of saying yes to a half-cooked idea, you say yes and then you can just add something on top of it, tweak it, tune it out, lean it out, whatever you need to do with it. But if you don't have that thought process or that that open mind, to something, you won't be able to do it in the first place.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, but you go back to it, like this pattern is back out, right? The behavior aspects for most business leaders, when we sit there, who makes a good leader? They're usually the visionary, they're usually fast, they talk fast, they meet fast, they're dominant, they like to fight, they like to challenge, right? But when they're sitting there and they're dealing with people, they have a tendency to shut them down.
Yeah.
Okay? And so when you actually shut them down quickly, they may not recognize that they shut them down, they might have got loud, they might have got boisterous. That doesn't mean anything to them, right? But in the end, the aspect they have with your person that's going to pull the team together, okay? The aspect you're having with somebody that's your go-to person, a person that sits there, they're very quiet, okay? The aspect with your analysis guy, what are you doing to them? And when that all comes back around, coming from the leader standpoint, okay? So the leaders actually have to be very careful as far as when they're being a visionary, throwing stuff out there. All right, because if you're doing it, then you got people that sit there and say they just want to please him, or her. I'm sorry, I don't mean to this
stereotype
or take it away, because actually there's more leaders, female leaders coming into place, which is very good.
Oh, that's
more research.
Leaders, yeah.
Oh, that's different. It's going back in the old day to where, we're going on for the other tangent. So hopefully we come back to that. I'm gonna probably remember. So, but anyway, so when we talk about learning, as far as back in the day, when women were actually in PE classes, we turned leadership back into PE classes, but they didn't realize that. In PE classes, when they weren't co-ed, the boys' classes were all about challenging each other. Who can win? King on a hill. It was about winners and losers. The girls' PE classes, or the female PE classes, were all about teamwork, pulling together, square dancing and dancing. It was all about doing stuff. So they learned skills that were very important to them. So when they actually started becoming leaders, when females started becoming leaders in organizations, they didn't sit at the end of the table. They sat in the middle with everybody else to pull them together. The man always sat there at the table. I'm the leader, sit there and talk to me. That was a power position.
Yeah.
Right?
That's very interesting.
But the answer is,
I haven't thought of that. Yeah.
The answer is you needed both.
Absolutely.
You needed a leader that at the time they can take it. We'll call it a field journal. Say let's go, and then you needed somebody who can come in and pull people together. So you needed aspects of both.
Yep.
Right, and that's where you go. The great leaders have that aspect of both. And it doesn't have anything to do with gender anymore.
I completely agree. It's not a gender thing. I think it really comes down with just the awareness of having some level of social awareness. That's the first thing. I mean, understanding how to talk to people is one thing. Leaving your ego at the door, it's another one. And I think that in order for any company to thrive right now, because I think right now what's happening is that, or at least what I'm noticing is that in past decades, making money was the one thing that kept somebody in a company. I think that's shifted. I think that's shifted. It's not necessarily just making money that matters to people anymore. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of making that they feel. It's a sense of them feeling like they make a difference in what they're doing. and having that impact, and not just their immediate environment, but have the ripple effects come out of them as a result. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
No, what you're saying is absolutely correct. So when we're looking at it, we say there's three different things of people that are coming in a job, right? There's people who are looking for a job, there's people who are looking for a career, and there's people who are doing it because it's their calling. Mm-hmm. If you're coming in for a job, they're going to sit there looking for 9 to 5. That's who you really want the processes for, because they really don't care what happens.
Right.
As long as they're doing a bare minimum and you're going to get paid, they're out.
Yeah.
Okay. Then you have people who are looking for a career. They're looking to come stay a long time. They'll give you a little bit more effort. The people who are naturally doing stuff because it's their calling, they're looking there because it means something to them. The money doesn't mean anything, although in order to keep them, sometimes you're going to have to pay them, but you take the money off the table, which alludes to what you're saying. But they're looking about what's going to come out and how they're feeling connected to the job. So that's why we're going to a lot of the pattern we're trying to get people into. We're trying to match them up to jobs and keep them. We have research that shows if we actually tie people to the jobs, that's based on their skills, but you also teach them with your onboarding process, their engagement levels goes up and they stay 3 times longer. Okay, so that's why we do benchmarks. That's why we do the benchmark. Let the job speak for itself, and then we match people up to it. There's another thing that's a great phenomenon that's going on in this country now. It's been going on for a while. They're missing great employees, but that's something else. If you want to talk about it, remind me to come back to that one. It has to do with age and all that kind of stuff. But when we talk about the money, that's why you do a salary survey. And you get a salary survey, you're talking about, okay, this is what this salary, this is what these job responsibilities, this is what they pay for, this is what they're worth, and then you actually put on, okay, based on education, they can get a little bit more. Then you determine what we want to do. We want to take money off the table. So based on a salary survey, here's the average, here's the median for our area, here's the median across the country. We're going to pay them a little bit more because we want to make sure they don't do that, because we actually have numbers that show if you're only paying 50%, your likelihood of keeping those over a period of time, good luck. But if you're paying a little bit more, likely to get there, because now you take money off the table and now they go to it. Because money really eventually doesn't mean a thing.
Yeah.
But so you want to take it off the table, and then you want to tie what the job means to the people, and then their engagement goes up, and you're going to have better satisfied customers, and you see your profits go up. If we looked at Gallup, when engagement goes up 1%, you can get a 12 to 22% increase on productivity out of that employee.
Isn't that crazy?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But for some reason in America, we're only working at 33% engagement, and we're happy about that. That's failing.
Yep.
My whole job is to actually improve that engagement score and let everybody be happy. You imagine what our communities, what our economy would be if everybody, or at least improve it to, even going by that number, improve it to 40%.
Yeah.
Improve it to 50%.
Yeah.
Right? Now the other thing is, people's enjoyment at their company is actually up to them, but we don't. That's another whole nother topic, right?
Yeah, I think. I mean, well, that's huge. I mean, people go to work daily, 9 to 5, and it's scary to see, based on data, that 30% of the people that go to a 9 to 5 are actually engaged in what they're doing. The rest are just kind of punching in and punching out. That's it. Right. So I mean that speaks to the quality of the work that's happening out there, to the and I think it also speaks to the leadership of the people who are actually my thing just went out to the leadership of the people actually at the head of those companies.
That's a pretty red, by the way, so we'll go with that.
Yeah,
but it does speak to the head of the companies, right? So, for instance, a lot of people kept talking about they want work-life balance. Mm-hmm. There was research out there, and I can't recall the specific research out there that showed work-life balance didn't have to do with the amount of time on the job. It had to do with how happy you were with the job.
Right.
So they did this research, and they actually started looking at how where the family perceived it. If you go to work, and you come home, and you're griping and complaining and bitching at the end of your day, who's that affect? Where's that showing up? It shows up with your wife, shows up with your kids. Therefore, they don't want you at work. They start doing stuff inadvertently to try to pull you away. Then I actually put more stress onto you. However, if you go to work and you go home and you're happy, mm-hmm. they like your job.
Yeah.
If you go home and you stay, even if you stay late, but you go home and you're happy at the end of the day, they like your job, and all of a sudden that comes back on you. Your cortisol levels down. You have what we call the clear glass effect. The way you interact with your peers, the way you interact with your subordinates, or I like to call it direct supports, because you're supporting them from a service leadership standpoint. Yeah. And then when you get home, the way you're interacting with your friends, your family, your loved ones, they think it's all good, and that's true. But that comes from if you're doing stuff that's on your calling, right?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting to see also. Like for example, when you do an assessment, we have adaptive and then we have natural behavioral tendencies. When I've taken mine multiple times just to see if because we change, and through the years I've taken mine multiple times, and I've been doing the same type of stuff over the last 15 years or so, and I mean I don't move. I mean, my behavioral strengths kind of sit in the same space where you would need them for the type of stuff that I do, which is volatile. It's moving around. It's not. I mean, it's not routine by any means.
Right.
But I think I'm wired to be in a space like that, and I feel like fish in water, man. Like I feel like I flow in it, and yeah, sometimes I'll bump my head in the myself in the head, but it's not, at the end of the day, I don't feel tired, I don't feel stressed, I don't feel like I'm under duress, even though it's a high pressure type of environment. But it's very important to find that space where you don't have to adapt, because the distance between adapting, between your natural and your adaptive style, that's going to create the amount of stress that you're going to be able to put up with.
Yeah.
And
that energy pull is amazing. For
Yeah.
instance, I had an energy pull
insane.
today. Hence,
hence
By the
the debrief. Cheers to that.
cheers.
So
Excuse me. Woo! Good stuff.
good stuff.
But anyway, that's exactly it. So, but yet, sitting here and having a conversation with you is great. It's the end of the day. Everybody else is going home on a Friday night, and here we are talking about this.
Amazing stuff. Well,
Right?
yeah.
But I feel good. I can talk about this stuff. I can
Right.
sit here and have these conversations with you. We can talk about other stuff. But the fact that we're sitting here, that's where my energy is now released. I can do this all the time. Right?
Right.
I can go home from here and have a great day now.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard it being referred to as finding your space of genius, and I mean that's the place where you can swim, you can do whatever you want, and then stay there for hours. Actually lose track of time, and then in that space where you're doing what you really enjoy doing. So, if and I think it's a blessing if you're an entrepreneur and then you're able to do that, day in and day out, and still feel happy, feel fulfilled, and then feel connected to your people, to your company, to your leadership, to the way that you're shaping the company, and then the direction that you're taking. I mean, that's a beautiful place to be in.
Right. That's one thing I tell people. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, either forced or by choice, pick one thing that you would do for free and go make money.
Find a way to monetize it. Yeah, yeah.
That is the one thing I would tell you to do. Because when things get tough, and they will get tough, you'll be able to fight through it.
Right.
If it's something that you're not, 9 times out of 10, you're going to quit.
Oh yeah.
But if it's something that you really believe in, you got it, you will fight through it. And you're going to have tough times, several times, regardless of what you think. Okay? But it is where you're going to fight through it. Like when I walked into your office today, I love that sign. It's hard to beat somebody who doesn't quit.
Yeah.
Right? I was sitting there talking about, dude, I'm tired. I'm tired.
And then if you notice, I have one right next to it that says "Get shit done," just so I remember to not quit.
Right.
Because I do get tired. Everybody gets tired.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. Something tells me to bring this up right now. But it's. I think right now it's a very interesting time. What's happening with COVID, and then just situations changing. A whole industry is just disappearing, and then other industries kind of popping up. I mean, I think now more than ever, I think we have to be somewhat open to pivoting. On whatever it is that, if it's not working anymore, of course, to pivoting to on whatever it is that we've been doing in the past. For example, I've been used to the stuff that I've done in the past. It's always been brick and mortar businesses. However, over recent months, actually, I started pivoting into SaaS, software as a service type of stuff, and more digital stuff. It's the way that we can reach people right now. So I don't think it's basically what I want to put out there is that it's not a dead end if you're in an industry that halted, that stopped. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a way to find a way to pivot, that passion or that thing that you're working on into something where you can still play in that field, and make it work. I was having a conversation with somebody else a while back, and they asked me, "Are you passionate about real estate?" I own 2 businesses in real estate, and I told them, like, I mean, I think it's really hard to be passionate about, you know, transactions and doing paperwork and taking care of visitors and you know, dealing with broker documents and whatever. I don't know. It's just me sitting there looking at documents doesn't call my passion, right? However, there's plenty of ways to play in the space without having to, you know, to handle that, you know, the stuff that you don't like. For example, you know, coaching and looking into creative, you know, ways of real estate, and then developing or doing other stuff that may call more of you know, of that you know, passion again out of you, instead of just, you know, dropping it right there where you know it. I think it's pretty important to stay open to pivoting and open-minded to you know, see the possibilities that can happen in that space that you're at. So you don't, you know, I guess if something or somebody's struggling out there in a business, and because of the, you know, everything that's changing, it halted. It's not necessary always to throw everything out the window and then just, you know, completely stop it. There's, you know, the possibility of pivoting and finding other, you know, resources.
Right.
So,
you know, and I'm going through that right now myself with this COVID thing. You know, COVID took 80% of my business.
Yeah, it's crazy.
80%. As much as I want to crawl up in a corner and suck my thumb, I can't.
Right.
Right. I can't do that. I have to rely on me. I have to survive. I have other people relying on me. I need to help them survive, and that's what my life's been about. So, and that's just where it is. So I had to make a pivot. But what it did do when I actually looked at it, I looked at opportunity. So right now I'm in the fitness space, and I decided I'm in a fitness space for aging the corporate athlete, right? So I attached my passion, which is leading people, helping them. So a whole athlete, which help them with their business as I can do it. But at the same time, also making them where they're healthy, so they're going to be better at their business. They're going to be better at home, right? Mm-hmm. So I did that. So now I'm pivoting to where I'm doing a corporate athlete program, and you know, I started off focusing on men, but women actually have the same thing. I can do either one. But right now, so that's what I'm doing. How do you eat? How do you sleep? You know, your stress factors. All the same thing we did when we were coaching, when we had the one-on-ones. We'll talk about that stuff and help you go and do it. But we'll actually also work with exercise, nutrition, and recovery, which is, you know, how you sleep, you eat, and, you know, trying to get your hormones in the right pattern, especially as you age. That's actually very important, you know, so you can see that clear glass. Right. So you're going to be more productive at work. I had to make that pivot. And now I'm making that pivot right now. You know, pivots aren't always fast, but you have to do it. And I'm also doing it to where it's online because of COVID. I have to get it out there. And so I saw that opportunity. At the same time, I saw an opportunity where people were trying to get the stuff that I built. Other trainers like, nobody ever taught me that. I didn't know that kind of stuff. Now they want to get it. So now am I not only pivoting to where I'm taking care of the customers, but now I'm also pivoting where I'm actually trying to make an accelerator for trainers to come in and use my system to be successful. Right. That's how I can scale and finish the legacy I'm trying to build. Right. I had to make the pivot.
I think most people see problems, entrepreneurs see opportunity. So.
Well, you know, the old saying is, I have a shirt, one of my favorite shirts is it says, "Don't be a bitch" on it. Right? Yeah. It has a barbell on it.
Pretty much.
But the most thing, you know, it grew up, and I remember an old friend of mine once told me, you know, it's okay to complain, but if you're complaining without a solution, you're bitching.
Yeah. Oh yeah! Oh my God! Yeah.
So if you want to,
that's something that triggers me so much.
I'll gladly have a talk with you, but don't just bitch. So if you want to just come out, you want to get something off your chest, get it out. But I'm going to ask you, right? Just so we can always have this great conversation. What are you going to do? What's your solution? What are your options?
Yeah.
Turn it around. Plus, if you do that, you can feel it just drain out of your chest. When you start thinking about solutions, you know, you
sometimes
can feel it just
they don't even make
up.
it over to the person that you want to get them to. But it's empowering critical thinking within the teams. That's one, and I think two, it's trusting your team to bring you the solutions over. For one thing that I have is that if somebody's gonna come at me with a problem, or you know, something happened, you know, with the client, with the system, with whatever. I mean, they also come in with 3 ideas on how to fix it. That's what I ask for. So, and it doesn't matter if they're like, you know, shitty ideas, there's still 3 ideas, and it still shows some type of critical thinking. Honestly, I mean, 90% of the time we take one of those 3 and then fix it. So, but
or a combination of the three.
Yeah, exactly. But it's well, one, it's a way through leadership of empowering your team. That's one, and then entrusting them. It does so much when you do things like that. For example, their vested interest in whatever it is, if it's a project, if it's a company, if it's whatever it is, their vested interest is gonna increase. Their sense of belonging is also gonna go higher. So it's a lot of things that it does. I mean, and at the end of the day, the coolest thing is like it gets rid of an extra headache that I would have had. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. One of the things I would tell leaders to do, and I actually did it. It was kind of interesting when I first had to implement it at the last place I was executive director of, is that when people came to me in my office, first of all, they asked me if I had a minute. My answer was no. Mm-hmm. No, I don't got a minute. But if you want to talk to me, we can talk. But here's a process you got to go through to talk, because they always make sure they came to me. So I set it up. I already started putting it in place. You're going to have to come to me with some kind of thought. You're going to come to me with something, but I'm not going to own your monkey. And that's what I'm saying. So the first thing I told them, don't own their monkey.
I'm not going to own your monkey. I love that.
Don't own their monkey.
I'm going to borrow that.
If they walk into your office and they're sitting there saying stuff, great. Sit there, give them an ear, be empathetic, and then ask them, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Because you hired them. Now, if they sit there and say, I'm coming to you because I don't know what to do, then that's a different conversation, and that's okay. If they do that all the time, though, then you start thinking about developing them to have more critical thinking,
right,
and do the things that you hired them for, because they're supposed to be making your job easier, and not adding to it. So that's one thing, kind of like a relationship, right? You're in a relationship because they're adding to you and your life, not taking away.
Yep.
Same thing with employees.
When it comes to solutions, there's this really cool thing, and I haven't done it in a long time. But for brainstorming, it's a 3-6-5 method. And I think I can't remember, we talked about it. I think we may have done it at one of the masterminds a while back. I think I brought it in. But it's whenever you have a challenge or something that's big and you want to solve, you bring and it's a strategy for brainstorming. It's what it is. So you bring three people in, and then you give them 6 minutes, or I'm sorry, it's 3 ideas for you can change the numbers around, right? But you'll get the point. So it's 3 ideas for 6 minutes and 5 people. So 5 people have to give you 3 ideas in 6 minutes. And then they drop those 3 ideas in a paper, and then they'll just take the same paper and then push it over to the right. And after you're done, you slap everything that was written on all the papers and you put them on a board, and then you start. I mean, you have like a whole ton of over 100 ideas in a very short amount of time.
No. But, I like that idea. We didn't do that one. We did the issue processing. Remember?
Yeah.
We actually came out like an hourglass. I redid it, and it looks like an intestine. You're putting it at the top, and here what you have coming out.
Right there, yeah.
Right. So here's what you're going to do. Here's what we're going to fire. When you're going to get it done by. Here's how we can hold you accountable to it.
Right. Yeah. This was. I mean, it's a good way of tapping into the team. I think. I mean, that's why I like that. Really, I like some of the ideas, because you start running out of ideas pretty soon after like the third round. You're like, man, what else can I think? And it didn't matter. Like, it can be something really silly, something stupid. Just put it on there. But we found that combining some of that stuff, when you see it all on a wall, it makes sense. But there's as far as a problem, if you have a problem, come on, bring a couple solutions along with it. If you're an employee and you're gonna go to your boss, bring him a couple of solutions. They'll be so appreciative about it. They're gonna remember that too whenever the race.
They will. So there's a couple of things that come with that. First of all, Dave Marquardt, who wrote "Turn the Ship Around."
Yeah.
That's one of the things he talks about. You're trying to get your employee to be, instead of being the person in the back and the boss in the front, you want to switch them. You want the employee to be in front with the decision, and the boss just to be in the back. Right. And that's where you want to get them. That's how he turned the ship around, and he got awards for how his ship ran by going through that process. And that's where we want to be. We want the employees to be in front. Although we might be in front when we're out there to the public and to the public eye and to the board members, that's all great, fine and dandy. Okay? That's always fun. We all know that. But the employees are the ones who are actually leading and making things happen. So that's why you got to make things set up for them to be successful.
Yeah.
You got to remove the barriers so they can be successful. That's our job as leaders.
Yep.
Right? Everybody thinks as a leader, we're going to be out front running the charge. Well, kind of. But for the most part, you also have to sit back because you have to do the strategy. You got to look at it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Kind of like the generals in war. You can't be out there fighting because if you go along, who's going to make the strategy?
Well,
you have all this perspective and experience that they don't have, and you got to direct and do the strategy. And say, okay, we got to do this, and move that piece, and get it back. If you're out there in the front line, you can't see what's happening. You know, same thing. I use this analogy of like I don't remember I got this, but it was like a crop duster. You know, if you're a farmer and you're plowing your field, and you're trying to make a design, you can't see it until you get up in the airplane. You see it from the top, and you can see the design. The higher you get up, then you can actually see the other designs and other fields that you probably pull together, or they don't pull together.
Yeah.
Right. So if you're not up high, you have trouble seeing.
Yeah, you're pretty much. I mean, at that point, if you're in it, you're not. If you're the CEO and you're in it, you're not doing your job. Our job, I think, is to stand. Yes, with the team, but we also got to hold a different perspective. We have to be able to understand how things are coming together. We have to be able to understand how the whole team is behaving and tweak it and kind of, you know, steer it along as we go. Because if the issue of control pops up and you just don't want to let go of things, and you're the owner / CEO, which happens, you know, a lot, it kind of, I mean, it really defeats the purpose of having a whole business. I mean, just go work somewhere where they tell you what to do, and then you clock out at 6, and then you don't have any headaches after hours.
Yeah. So. You know, and we seen that. I mean, we worked on a couple of businesses together, and the ones that really break my heart to where they're excited. But as soon as you actually, we start telling them, here's how you can get everybody on board to start seeing what the whole company is trying to get to, and then we know that they'll start to understand what their role is, and they help you pull it along. Some people don't believe that. They believe they got to hide all the facts about the company because they have this perception that then somebody's going to think, no, now they're going to want more pay. That's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
I've been in companies where I said, you know, recognize this, and they recognize a certain thing, all right? But then the company actually, for instance, we talked about vacation days. They were going to redo their vacation days because when they did their engagement survey, the people in the company said, you know, we want some more free time. They're like, okay, so listening to our employees, because they want to be employee focused, that was their culture. Mm-hmm. They want to be employee focused. It's like, okay, we can give them more days, but we want to ask them where to go, how they want to get to it. After they did figured out how the business makes money and realized the money wasn't where they actually thought it was. You know, people think everybody at the top of the company is making all this kind of money because how they live on it. They don't realize that there's responsibilities, there's money's going out, and you're working for a net that all comes out to it, and they don't see that a lot of times if we don't share it. But when we do share that, then they actually try to help you make sure you actually reach your goals.
Right.
Because then they see there's a benefit to them to helping you reach your goals. And then when they get that benefit, then they actually, going back to the story of this company, the one thing they did, they actually said, we want to give them more time. The company turned down saying, let's not give more time. Let's not do more vacation time. They actually came out with another recommendation that actually made the company money. I can't remember specifically what it was. I remember what it was. But I think they turned around to, let's do a share. And the company said, you know what, we do that. And they did the finances on it. We'll make more money. And our people are here and they're happy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, it's funny, man. That exact same thing happened in my transportation business, my first business. We were having issues one time. It was logistics on scheduling and then catching because we had to run 24-hour shifts and go. You know, sometimes pick up clients in the middle of the night at a hospital. It was a non-emergency transportation business, but we were having conflicts, and then. One time we just brought it, we had a big company-wide meeting, and it was brought up by one of the employees because the conflict was in scheduling, right? Like I didn't want to sequester people and then tell them like you can't do anything, on Wednesdays because we might call on you at midnight. You know what I mean? And then I couldn't afford to pay him all those extra hours, 24 on. They would get bonuses per trip if they got called, but that's kind of like an option, right? So it kind of felt unfair on my end to force them to a timeline and not pay him throughout that time. So they're like, well, how about we do this? I mean, if this was brought up by one of the employees, and it was really something that I was struggling with, like, ethically. I didn't want to force. I knew I could, and they were probably going to say yes because they needed the work, but I didn't want to do it. It didn't feel right. So one of the employees said, well, what if we do this? I mean, we have this sign up. Everybody signs up for whatever, days they want to work on. And if they can't cover their shifts, they got to have 3 people on that list that they can call, directly. And this is something we can do as employees, and everybody, it's magic still to this day. What happened was that they got together, they set up the after hours schedules. So everybody signed up. We covered, all the time that we needed to cover, and then they had fallbacks. So if they couldn't make it, they would make 3 calls to 3 different employees that they were already in talks with them. Like, if you don't want it that day, I'll take that trip that day, and I'll make the extra $150 or whatever. But it was a solution that was brought up by the company as we and this happened because I put all my cards on the table. Like, we're struggling with this. I have no idea on how to fix it. I don't want to force you guys, to be on a rigid schedule that I can't pay you for. And I don't think it's fair for me, to ask of you, 10 extra hours to put away, not work, but put away 10 extra hours just to be on call when I can't pay you during that time. I mean, unless something pops up, and it's not guaranteed that something was going to come up. So, it just didn't feel fair. And then, they saw that. They like the because we're very employee focused. Mm-hmm. They like the culture of the company, and then they just came up with the solution by themselves. And it's amazing what can happen if you tap into that energy with your employees, man.
Oh, the employees have all kind of ideas. That's the same thing I say. I used to go out to my floor staff all the time and say, "Hey, okay, here's what we're trying to do. What do you think?"
Yeah, like what?
You can see them; they just light up.
Yeah.
Sometimes they came out with stuff that are like, okay, no, but that's where what the gyms are in your employees. Yeah. Ask them, give them a chance. They'll surprise you.
Yeah.
Now for me it's no longer a surprise. I come up, let's bring everybody together. Here's what we're trying to, just like you did.
Yeah.
Here's what we got. Any suggestions?
Yep.
I'm throwing it out there.
Yep.
All right, just like they come to you. I need help to try and do this, right? Help them with it if they can, but you also need to know sometimes they'll just come there. They keep coming to you as an answer man, which you don't want to be the answer man. As a leader, you want to be the question man.
Yeah, you can't get away from it.
You want to be the question man because that's how you develop them. If you always have an answer, then you're not helping them along. Same thing, again, going back, the way we started this, going back to your kids. If you're always you're answering for your kids, they're not learning anything.
Right.
They're not learning anything.
Yep. No, I completely agree. So before we cap it off, I know you're, one of your strongest suits, I think it's leadership. What 3 things would you tell our entrepreneurs out there to focus on in terms of leadership? As
far as leadership, one thing I tell you, be good and brave. Recognize that they're coming to you for comfort. They're coming to you for guidance. So maintain your being calm, because that's what they need in situations like that, and guide them through and let them know everything is going to be all right. Okay, that was one thing I'm telling you. At the same time, realize that you don't have all the answers, but you know where to get them. All right, and so you'll go get answers. So that's be good and brave. Another one, be green and growing. Don't ever rest on your laurels. Don't ever think something's good enough. Because if you're like the little engine that could, if that little engine actually stopped going up that hill at any given time, what do you think is going to happen? He was going to start to slide back down. And good luck trying to get your engines going back up that hill.
Yeah.
Okay? Good luck on that one. All right? So, and always be green and growing, not ripe and rotting. Excuse me. I blew a lip. Okay? And, the last thing I would like to tell them, is be intentional, but have integrity while you're being intentional. Yeah. There's people who are intentional. I'm going to go get this done, and they will step over everybody and step on people and leave dead bodies on the way out the door. But you got to make sure you're intentional. You got to make sure where you're going. You got to make sure you're going to get there, but you got to do it right.
Yeah. I love it.
Okay.
I love it.
Those are the 3 things I would give.
Awesome. No, thanks so much, man. So, a final question, and this is my favorite question, I think. I keep thinking back of when I was 17, and the advice that I would have liked to have gotten. But if you were walking down the street and then you saw little Dr. Brown, and he's like 17 years old with big ass arms, What would you tell that? What would you tell that kid? What one piece of advice would you tell that kid?
Don't do it alone.
Ooh.
I mean, everything I've done, I've done it alone. You know, I grew up in a single family of 6 kids. By statistics, being a black man in America, I should have been in jail. Okay? I took some steps not to, thank goodness. But I also was trying to do stuff alone. And now that I'm a little bit older, you know, I can see that if I didn't do it alone and if I reached out earlier, it's okay to reach out and ask for help. If I would have reached out earlier, you know, it's amazing to me to think of where I'd be. I don't think I'm in a bad place. I mean, we all start over certain places. But, you know, now I finally reached out for some help, and the people I reached out to, you, Jeff, Joe, amazing people. We got a group back, got help each other along. I don't feel alone, and although I might feel tense, I'm not scared to sit there and think I'm going to fall on my face anymore.
Don't do it alone. I love it, man. Wow, that's deep. I mean, you've shared a ton of stuff. I learned from you and with you, like every time we sit together and have a conversation. Thankfully, it happens, you know, regularly, and I'm really grateful, man, about the friendship that we've been able to create over the years. For my viewers out there, if they want to get a hold of you, reach out to you, find out more about what you do, pick your brain on whatever, where can they find you?
Nah, that's a secret. No, you can actually find me on Instagram under Dr. Exercise. You can get a hold of me through www.E3Fitology. It says just click for a consult, but just go ahead and get a hold of me there. Or you can actually go ahead and call me. My number is 623-680-2529. That's my direct number.
There you have it.
I'm hiding it. If you're a stalker, I'll take care of you. I'm not scared of you, whatever. But if you want to have a sit down, have a conversation, talk about anything, talk about what we can do, I'm here for you.
Well, one of the humblest dudes I know, one of the smartest dudes that I know, and very, very grateful for everything that I've been able to learn from you, the experiences and everything that we've had in the past, man. So thank you so much for sitting down with me and then, you know, just sharing your golden nuggets of wisdom, bro.
Oh, I appreciate everything you taught me. Thank you, sir.
There you guys have it. Another episode of the CO Pulse Podcast wrapped up. Boom. You just got a backstage pass to the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Make sure you follow us on YouTube and iTunes and check out our website at ceopulse.com. Stay tuned, stay focused, you got this.